All right, so this is the lecture for class 5 of the 3D modeling for real-time environments. So what I want to talk about here is basically these items here. First thing I'm going to talk about is drawing. Okay, so and how important it is. So when what we do, drawing is our way of communication. Okay, so it'd be the same as you know, typing up something and writing it out so that people can read that. We do the same thing, but we use drawing. That's just another way of communication. I think a lot of times people get it caught up in art and that sort of stuff. And don't get me wrong, there is a value in that, and I appreciate art, but, you know, writing can be an art as well. At its base, you know, thing, drawing is just communication, okay? And communication generally means that you are making some sort of editorial or commentary about what you're seeing. You're not taking a literal interpretation of something. You are saying something about that, okay? Because you made it. And drawing is a great tool in that because you can quickly produce things and communicate very quickly through drawing. All right. So, and what you will and what I've noticed through the years of teaching and other people that I know is that the people who are the best modelers, the best like 3D modelers, be it characters, especially for characters, they're typically also the best drawers. And the reason I think that is just because they are better at making observations. They're better at understanding what makes an appealing design. In general, it's just a craft that they've learned. You'll find that if you're good at one form of art, typically it will help you, sometimes, you know, directly or indirectly, in those other forms. A lot of them are semi-similar. You know what I mean? Hand-eye coordination and shape and, you know, the principles of design and art elements. And one of the things that's been happening, and you probably are somewhat aware at this point, is that more and more programs are not as CAD-like, meaning we're not like just cutting edges and extruding. They're becoming more and more intuitive, and they're more and more allowing you to be an artist first and a technician second. It used to be very, you know, scientific. I mean, it is behind the scenes, but for the people making the various assets and such, those are they're artists first and foremost. Okay. And the one thing I kind of want to make a point about is that, you know, when I first started, the 3D modeling was a lot different than it is now. It was much more technical, and it's constantly changing, and it's probably going to get more intuitive. And the only thing that's not going to change, because we are in a technology-based medium, is your fundamental art skills. And that fundamental art skill, you know, drawing, painting, sculpting, you know, traditional sculpting, those things will apply no matter what. And so that's something you should always be working on, okay? I just want to show you a couple examples here. So, you know, when you think of Tim Burton, right, he's obviously really well known. You can see right here that his drawings are directly related to his animations. You see what I'm saying? I mean, you can see he did a drawing here, and this is exactly what the stop motion ended up being. James Cameron, who did Titanic, which was a crappy movie. He also did Avatar, which is also a bad movie. But he did do Terminator, which was an okay movie. But this drawing of Rose on the Titanic, that was actually by James Cameron. He drew that himself. So he's actually an artist too, because, you know, he's a visual medium, so he needs to be able to draw and to communicate his ideas. You'll find that, you know, even live action directors, they often, I would say most often, they actually have a pretty solid foundation in drawing as well. So I'm not going to play this video for you, but I'm just going to kind of explain what's going on. So, before Disney made Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, he made this short called Goddess of Spring. And they still do this today. A lot of times what large film studios will do is they'll produce short film animations, and they're sort of ways of testing new technology. They're also ways of testing the animators. Sometimes they'll put them in different positions, or they'll just see, you know, where they're at and know like where they can put them. But it's all for the purpose of just, you know, feeling out like where we're at, getting an idea of like, you know, a touchstone. So anyway, he knew he wanted to animate the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So he decided to make a short film called Goddess of Spring, and it was a good one because it's relatively similar, like at least like characters and stuff are relatively similar to other ones that would end up showing up. And what you're going to notice is in this movie that I'm not going to play for you, the animation is... Oh, I turned that off. The animation's just terrible. There's no joints. You can see she flops. I mean, like her back bends backwards in a... I just don't want the advertisement. Can I turn it off? Okay. Bends in ways that doesn't make sense. The animation in general, you'll see like her eyes and stuff just kind of float around her head. It's very not solid drawing. Like watch as this guy bends over to bow. Like he bends in a way that's not even like physically... Get out of here. It's not even physically possible. He would fall over besides his back being broken, and it just doesn't make any sense. So anyways, he saw this and he's like, wow, we are absolutely terrible at doing animation. And he wasn't very happy. So what he ended up doing is that he forced his animators that after work that they would have mandatory drawing courses from a local college. And he made a deal with them, he got like a good deal or whatever. But he forced them to do this. And this I think was in 34. Yeah, 1934. And then this was in 1937. So this is just 3 years later. They made this film after all those drawing lessons and what have you, called The Old Mill. And he actually won an Oscar for Best Short Film. And I'll just try to show a small clip of it. Let's get this going here. But it's gorgeous. I mean, the whole film is just, it's very beautiful. I mean, it holds up to today. There's the characters and stuff have a lot stronger foundations. I mean, it still has that kind of, animated, old school style kind of thing to it, but you can see the characters are much more solid. And the whole key to getting a much better product, he found, was basically drawing. And more specifically, drawing anatomy. And they actually still offer those today at Disney if you're like an animator. They don't force you anymore, but they do obviously suggest it. And there's different books about people who have taught those courses. Some of them, what's his name? There's one called Force by Matisse. I gotta look it up. But he did a book, and there's another guy. I can't remember it. But there's a couple different books that you can get out there that have those. So the reason why drawing anatomy is particularly better than like other forms of drawing is, for one, it forces accuracy, because you're looking at something and you're trying to mimic it exactly. And because we understand the human body, we know what it looks like. You can tell that it looks wrong. If I draw a cup, well, that cup doesn't look like this cup, and this cup doesn't look like that cup. And as much as humans look different than each other, we're very in tune with how we're supposed to look. So it gets you good at looking at something and trying to reach accuracy. If you're only just drawing out of your head, you're never going to be wrong, and you're never going to push yourself. This forces you to be, spot on. Another thing is it teaches you how to draw inside out. So because you're learning about anatomy with figure drawing, what'll end up happening is that you will realize what's inside of the figure and draw not like on the outside, like what we call contour. Like you can see there's like this outside line. You're going to draw the forms that are inside the lines. And what it'll do is it'll give it more three-dimensionality. It'll give it a solid feeling, and that's particularly important if you do hand-drawn animation, because usually you start with conceptual forms, spheres and cylinders, and to a lesser extent planes or cubes. You use those forms, and you kind of do the same thing when you draw anatomy. So it teaches you to draw from the inside out as opposed to drawing from the outside in. It's also the foundation of a lot of designs, character designs, sometimes even, mechanical designs. They'll use what we know about anatomy and apply it in the same way. So one of the first things I do if I get like a character and I have to make a character design, I will go through and I will look up the anatomy of whatever the animal is, and I will utilize that and look for like key features and maybe like exaggerate those. You can even use it if you're doing a human. You can take an animal, so like let's say you want to get a character who's kind of slow, right? You can use a turtle as kind of a foundation and then apply that to your human, and it will give it a sort of, a feel. It's also a non-technological skill, so I kind of mentioned that earlier, but as the technology changes, the only thing that's not going to change are your art skills. you know, your ability to create, your ability to be creative, right? Your craftsmanship. Those things will apply to whatever medium you go to. So if you do something and you're going to do a painting or you're going to do a drawing or you're going to do whatever, you know, those go across all mediums, generally speaking. So it's really good for that. These are just some drawings that I did, but you can see, you know, there's, I kind of drew around the figure. You can see, like, I'm trying to put the anatomy in here. This is like a more finished drawing. These were just kind of sketches. Here's a real obvious one. So this is actually based off of a masterwork. But basically I drew the anatomy and then drew the figure, and you can see how they kind of directly relate. Now here's a good example of not knowing anatomy. Rob Liefeld, I'm not sure how you say his name, but he's actually the creator of Deadpool, believe it or not. But he is kind of world renowned for how bad he is at drawing. I highly suggest you click on this link and read this article, because it shows a bunch of things and it's just hilarious. Like if you look at here, where's her leg? I don't know. It's gone. She's just randomly not there anymore. If you look at here, I mean, I don't understand where the guy's waist is. You know, this guy, it's just, he doesn't like to draw feet. He always has these like floating feet. If you look at here, he's really bad at drawing. But I highly suggest clicking on this article. You can kind of see when you can throw as much what we call shtick, you know, like shading and details, and throw extra muscles on muscles on muscles and what have you, and wrinkles and all that. But if it doesn't have a strong foundation, it just looks like crap. It's kind of like a cupcake, you know what I mean? Like everyone likes the frosting on a cupcake, but you wouldn't eat just the frosting. I know some of you guys are saying, oh, yes, I would. You really wouldn't. You need like a good cake underneath to kind of support that frosting. It's kind of the same idea. This is just a drawing app that if you want to play around with, it's fun. I don't know. All right, so I'm going to end this video. I'm going to start another one for the next section. But the main thing I just really want to get in your head here is to draw. That's going to make your stuff better than anything else.